Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Haven't been able to get out very far because there's no diesel. Those of you who aren't in the UK have probably heard about it on the news, but we've got a serious problem of not enough diesel fuel generally going around because of a shortage of lorry drivers to deliver it. Anyway, I've come up to the woods, which is becoming a bit of a regular theme, but we're getting into autumn colours now, and I really quite like it. The leaves are starting to turn. They haven't fully turned, so there's only small patches of colour. The green is still predominantly the main colour here, but as you can probably see as I spin you round, there is colour starting to happen, and in this tree just up here, which I can't point you at because it's tracking my face, it's just off the screen there. There's some nice yellow leaves dangling down over the track, and I've got the camera. I've also got Ozzy, he's here, he's enjoying himself. And for those of you that have been watching the channel, you've realised that probably by now what's sitting on the camera isn't what I normally have. And I must admit that I've actually finally made the decision to go junk my Sony equipment. I sold it all to a company called MPB that trade equipment last week and replaced it with a FujiFilm GFX100S. Now, I know those of you that have watched the channel, this will come as a bit of a surprise because of what I said previously, but at the end of the day, I just simply wanted to go for the higher resolution of 100 megapixels. And the one advantage that this camera gives me over my Sony is it does in-camera focus stacking, which I've been playing with the last couple of days, and I believe it's common to all of the Fuji cameras, but this one's got it as well. And it's just starting to rain, so that's going to test the waterproofing of the camera as well. But I've been playing with it and I've found some absolutely stunning examples, and I think that's going to help. I like to focus stack, and normally when I focus stack in landscape, it's probably only about 4 or 5 shots I take. But allowing the Fuji to decide on the number of shots, I set the aperture, say f8 or f11 or something, and given a front to back distance of infinity through to maybe 8 to 10 feet away, it's taking something like 40 or 50 shots, even at f8 or f11, which I find amazing. But the resultant image, when it's combined together in Photoshop, stunning, absolutely stunning. Can't fault it. I'll put one of them up now and you can just have a look at the sheer information that's in the shots. Anyway, for the sake of not wanting to get too wet, I'm trying to get some shots here. So I'll walk along, find a nice scene. I think there's going to be quite a few nice scenes up here, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the pictures I take. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll move on and I'll find somewhere hopefully not too wet. I've got it for me, I've actually bothered to bring a waterproof coat with me, which has made it rain. Anyway, let's go on and see what we can get. Well, as I mentioned, it is seriously raining now, so I'm hiding just slightly under the cover of a tree here. But there's a nice little shot that's I've set up, and let me explain the lenses I got with this camera. I've got a 23mm prime, which has, well, it should be arriving at this very minute. It's due for delivery this morning, so I haven't actually put that to use yet. But I've got the 32 to 64 zoom lens, and I've got the 100 to 200 zoom lens. I've also got a 45mm extension tube for any macro that I want. And the one thing that I also bought was an adapter for this camera, and what that adapter does, it allows me to put Sony A-mount lenses, of which I have 2 or 3 floating around, and I didn't sell them because, number one, they weren't particularly expensive to buy, and I thought, well, they might come in useful. Let me show you what I've got on the camera. So what I've actually got on the camera here at the moment is this Photo Pro adapter from GFX mount, which is here, through to Sony A mount, and I've rather unusually got this 500mm mirror lens, which, if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll see that I've actually used to pretty good effect. It's a very unusual lens, and I needed a long lens because, as I say, I don't feel complete in my lens lineup unless I've got a fairly decent long lens. And this lens is an f8 fixed aperture. It's an autofocus lens, which obviously is manual on this camera because it's not got the pass-through from the electronics to make that work, but I don't mind that too much. But the one thing it does, which is amazing, and let me show you the incredibly narrow depth of field it's got. It's even, I'm focused on some bits of grass sticking up from a tree root, which I'll show you here on the back of the camera. If you can see that, there is some some nice bits of grass sticking up from this tree root, and then there's a tree root in the background, and then there's a very out of focus tree in the distance here. And I think that makes quite a nice shot. But as you can see, the focus peaking's happening here. I've got red on the grass in the image, and if I adjust the focus manually, you can see the red shifting, and I'm only turning the focus ring millimeters, if that, just fractions of millimeters. So I'm going to take a shot with the root of the tree in focus here, which I've got 25th of a second. It doesn't know the F number. I've got ISO 1000 because I need to have a bit of speed on this to cut out any motion. There's a tiny bit of wind. I'm going to focus next on the bit of grass that's just behind it, which is nicely in focus now, so I'll take that shot. And I'm not going to go further back through the frame manually because I want the second and third tree to be out of focus, because I just want this root of the tree here and this grass growing out and this bit of green grass in the bottom in focus. And I think that makes quite a nice shot. I'll have to focus blend those obviously in Photoshop afterwards, but I think that's got a lot of potential. It's a really nice moody image, and that 500mm allows me to really focus in closely on little details that when you look at the picture normally, see, I'll just spin you around and show you what it is. There's the first tree next to this post. There's a tree here, and the grass is sticking out from the bottom of the tree there, and then there's a second tree, and then in the distance third and fourth tree. And I've only got the second, third and fourth tree, or first, second and third tree in the shot on the back of the camera. And I think that's got a lot of potential. So that's one in the bag. As I say, that is one in the bag. I'm quite pleased with that image, actually. It just goes to show what you can make of what looks ordinary. But if you actually take it out of concept or out of context, you get a much different picture. Anyway, I'll put it. But as I say, that shot, I think, will work quite nicely, especially if I can focus blend just 2 or 3 images, because of the narrow depth of field. I want the piece of the root of the tree, which you can see just there. I want that, it's got focus highlighting on it. I want that to be sharp, and I want the grass behind it. And as you can see, the grass behind it isn't actually focused at the moment. So I've taken that shot and moved the focus point onto the grass, and you can see the focus peaking is now happening on the grass, which is a very useful feature. And I can also zoom in if I want to, and you can see there, apart from the fact the slightest movement makes a difference, you can see the effect. Tiny movements here to make that focusing happen. So I think that will do me for that second shot. There we go, 2-second timer. I'm going to move on. It's not raining too badly, and quite frankly, I don't particularly care. The camera's waterproof, I'm relatively waterproof, and sometimes having a nice bit of rain makes for some more interesting colours, because it actually dampens the leaves, and then the leaves foliage actually has more colour in it. I haven't got a polarizer with me, and even if I did, I couldn't put it on this mirror lens because it's an unusual size, and I don't think it's even got a filter thread. No, it hasn't, so that wouldn't help me, although normally I'd probably put a polarizer on if the leaves are wet. But I'm going to move on and see what else we can find. Yeah, so one of the other features that really I approve of a lot on this Fujifilm is, I had it on the 50R when I had it, and it's this tiltable screen at the back. It's not just tilt flip out as the Sony was, it also actually can go into a vertical orientation, which is really handy for those portrait shots, or at least portrait orientated shots. I'll show you. So as you can see, I've got the camera mounted in portrait orientation here, and the shot I'm trying to get, I've got the 32 to 64 lens on, and I'm just framing up this area here, so with a little puddle, and then up the right hand side across the tree, and then down through the trunk of this really old gnarled tree here. And I think it makes for quite an interesting shot, and particularly the angle screen is very useful because I can tip it up virtually to horizontal, and I can get the orientation I really want. And as you can see there, I'm at f16, probably, let me go down to f11, I'm going to focus stack this shot, so I need to set the points for the focus stack to work for, which goes a bit like this, although I'm a little bit new to this. So I need to set the front point, so I wound the focus right in close to the foreground, and I press OK, and now I move the second marker. This is an A marker and a B marker, and the B marker is the one that's moving now, and I'll move that right to the distant tree there and the wood just immediately beyond it. As you can see, there's a lot of red showing, but in terms of focusing, if I zoom in a little bit, it'll let me. It's not going to let me. That's one of the weird things, it doesn't let you zoom in for some reason. I have to more or less set it at 20 meters, which is past the tree in the distance. And now that's going to take how many shots? 6, 7, 8, 9. It's taken 9 shots, and every time it takes a shot it moves the focus point a little bit further. And as you can see here on the screen, I don't know if you can see, there's a yellow marker on the focus range. That yellow is the range that I've set from the nearest focus point to the distant focus point, and that's the range that it'll actually increment the focus between. Obviously, if I stop the lens down further, if I go to f/22 for instance, it'll probably only take 4 or 5 shots now to achieve the same effect. So let's just do that. And how many is it taking? 1, 2, 5. It's taking a total of 5 instead of 9. So that's that shot. I think that's quite interesting. There's a nice little bit of foreground interest down here, apart from Aussie. There's some nice bits of root coming through, and there's a nice covering of leaves on the ground around here, golden brown coloured leaves. And that's the second shot. Well, as I say, that's the second shot. I'm really enjoying this actually. It's nice and peaceful. I've only seen that one guy picking mushrooms, and it's really pleasant up here in the woods. It's a nice varied area. There's so much difference in the different types of trees. In fact, you'll probably recognise some of the trees. This is a place I shoot quite often, but I think it's always interesting to try something different, so I'm trying something different. Well, for my second or third shot, I've chosen this old piece of tree that's been cut down. It's laying on its side, and all of the branches are bent as they've had to take the weight of the trunk pushing down on them. I'll spin you around and show you. That's the old tree, and you can see it's being cut off at this end, and all of the branches that are at the bottom half are all curved, and that's almost certainly due to the weight of the tree, this part of the tree, pushing down on those. I can't believe it grew that shape, or maybe it did, but who knows. It wasn't around. I don't remember it ever being whole. In fact, I think if I follow the line here, that's probably where it was cut down from, just there. That's it. Probably it's about the same diameter, allowing for a little bit of cutting, and I don't think anyone would have bothered carrying it any distance. So what I've got on the back of the camera here is I've got the 32 to 64 at about 40 millimeters at the moment, and I think that makes quite an interesting frame. But again, I've got it set to focus bracket from this end of the branch here. I set one focus point there, and I set the distant focus point on the far branches in the distance there, and I've got f/14 set at ISO 100. I'm going to take that shot, 2-second timer, and it's going to take 12 shots. Second, third. I won't bore you with the detail of watching all of those happen, but when I get back I'll be able to pull those together. Well, for my next shot, I found a couple of bits of dead tree sticking up at the side of the track here, and some ferns which are just behind you. I'll turn you around and let you have a look. What I've got is camera portrait orientation, and I want to get the edge of these ferns just here with these 2 bits of dead wood sticking up that V shape in the distance. And what I want to do is I want to focus stack this image so that basically what I've got is all these ferns in focus and the tree not in focus. So I need to set the camera up for that. So I'll go into focus bracketing, And the first point I want is I want this very closest piece of fern down here in the very bottom of the screen here to be pin sharp. So let me pull the focus down to there, and the focus highlighting is showing this right hand corner's right. Hit OK for that, and then move the second point. You see the focus is moving through to the end of the fern that's just in the top right here, so that I've got this range from down here up to there, which is the furthest point in focus. And I'm going to set that, that's my end point, and let's let that take that shot, because I want the trees, the two trees in the distance, to actually be out of focus. Okay, for my next shot, I was rather taken by this, it's a sweet chestnut actually sitting on the end of a branch directly in front of me, and behind it I've got a silver birch about maybe 20 feet behind that, and what I've got on is the 500mm lens again, which obviously, as I've already mentioned, gives me virtually no depth of field. And the framing that I've got, which you might not be able to see here, is there's the sweet chestnut there, and the nice silver birch is running up along the side there, giving a nice background bit of interest, but it's well out of focus. And I focused right on the actual sweet chestnut itself, although the screen's just gone off, and it's incredibly tight getting focus correct on this. It's manual, obviously, and the difference between that sweet chestnut, the little spears on it, or whatever you want to call them, being tack sharp and not, is about 1 millimetre of rotation of the lens, which is absolutely amazing. But I'm going to take that shot, and I've got ISO 3200, because as you can probably hear, there's a little bit of wind rustling around in the trees, and it's making that branch, which is sticking quite well out from the tree, move a lot, and I need a decent shutter speed. So I've got approximately 180th of a second at 500 millimeters, and I'm just timing it carefully for a quiet patch in the wind. I'm hoping that's it. Yeah, I'll take a second one to be on the safe side. The wind's just died down temporarily, and the battery's nearly gone on the camera, so luckily I've got another one charged up, because I haven't quite finished here yet. Anyway, I'll put that shot up now and you can have a look at it. I think it's quite a striking image. I love the way the separation's happening because of the narrow depth of field. It just gives the main focus point, which is the sweet chestnut, that much more emphasis compared to everything around it, and the nice subdued lighting here is making for a nice image as well. So let's see what else I can find, then go home, put this together and put it up for you guys. Well, I don't know if you can hear the rain. It's really starting to hammer down now, and I'm going to be needing this coat. I've got about a mile to walk back to the car and the wind's getting up, but I just thought I'd take this one last shot as I'm walking along this beautiful little track here. And I do like this part of the woods. It really is very, very special. The trees are very varied: silver birch, oak trees, beech trees of different sorts, the odd birch tree, I think, if they haven't all died yet. And I'll show you what it is I'm looking at, but I really think this looks quite nice. Basically, what I've got is, I've got the ferns in the foreground just down here, front of the lens, and then I've got this one silver birch, it's dead now actually, the top of it's not visible from here, but then there's an oak tree and a second oak tree, and then I think that's a beech tree here on the right. And I think that framing with the prominence of I've gone down to 32mm, which is equivalent to 24 in full frame terms, and the light's really subdued because of the rain and everything going on, and the wind stopped a little bit, and I like this grouping of ferns here, and I like the way the trees frame the ferns in the foreground. So I'm going to quickly get that shot, and I'm not focus stacking it. I've got f22 set and I'm focused on the nearest fern, and if the rest of it's out of focus I can live with that, because that'll emphasize the ferns in the foreground more. So let's get that shot. The camera's getting well wet, so that's definitely proving whether it's waterproof or not. There we go, one shot. Quick look at that, make sure it's, yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Yes, there is some softening in the distant trees, but I can live with that. So before I turn into papier-mâché or get washed away, I'd best get back to the car. It's, as I say, about nearly a mile from here, so it's going to be a fair trudge through this, and with a dodgy knee that's going to take forever. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. It's becoming a bit of a theme for me, Woodland. I do really like it, and I hope the images are nice and you like them, and you like going through with me the journey of generating them. Anyway, we'll see you on the next video. Thanks very much for watching.